Hello, I'm going to show you this morning my recipe for pancakes. I actually just filmed me mixing it all and then I realised I did something wrong. So anyway, I will go through the recipe with you. So it's 225 grams of self-raising flour, which you sift into a bowl and then make a well in the middle. So just try and push the flour up the sides of the bowl, make a well in the middle, drop in 2 eggs. You can either mix them before that or you can just drop them straight in, 2 medium eggs. The next thing I added was 120 mils of milk. You could use whole milk or semi-skimmed, is absolutely fine. And then I added in approximately 4 tablespoons of syrup. The recipe would have been to put 4 ounces or 100-ish grams of self-raising flour. But I use syrup just for a smoother recipe, and it's what my nana always used. So what I did was I put all the wet ingredients into the middle and then I mixed it up really hard, okay? My last video was mostly me just mixing this. So I've mixed it all up together with a good sturdy fork. You could use a whisk if you want. You could probably use a spoon, but I always use a fork just to try and make sure to get all the lumps out. Now, so basically it's just a really nice thick mixture. It still drips, which is fine, but if it feels a little bit too thick, you can add in a tiny bit more milk and just make sure you mix it all up really well in between. Okay, so this is really well mixed. What I've done in the meantime is I got my pan. I have a crepe pan. You don't need a crepe pan, you can just use a frying pan. And what I did was I sprayed a tiny bit of oil into the pan just to make sure nothing sticks. Just a tiny bit, and I'm using my brush just to make sure that I'm wiping the oil all the way around the pan. Now I put this on at number 6 really high, just to make sure I could get the temperature right up to quite a high temperature. So it is quite high. I'm just going to turn it down to 5 just now, but you really need to keep an eye on this and try and sort of maintain a similar temperature throughout your cooking. And I'll show you why, because if it's too hot it'll just burn basically. So I'm going to get a spoon. My pancakes are always random different sizes. So what I'll do is I'll take the fork out because that's just going to get in the way. Now that I've made sure it's quite well mixed. The other thing is I've used a glass bowl because you can actually have a look sort of down at the bottom and make sure that you've mixed everything properly. Okay, so I'm just going to take one. This is just like a dessert spoon. Just going to take that, blob it into the pan. I'll do another one. I usually do about 3 at a time just so that there's space to flip them, because sometimes when you're flipping them they then fall on top of another one and then it gets all really messy. So I've put 3 in there. Okay. So that's my 3. Now, if you have a look at it, sorry, I'm not very good at filming. If you have a look, you'll see that they start to bubble on the top, which is a really good sign because that's a sign that they're cooking. Now, these are bubbling quite quickly, which is quite unusual, so I'm going to take them off the heat just now. Now this is a palette knife which you can use for putting like icing and stuff. It's my favourite implement for doing pancakes just because it's like, so you see that's quite dark, that one. Let me turn the first one that I did so it doesn't burn. So you can see these are quite dark. What I'll do is, because the pan is quite hot, I'm not going to put it immediately back onto the heat. I'm just going to leave it for a minute, and actually you can see how the volume of them, so basically they started off quite flat and now they're actually growing because it's self-raising flour, so it bakes, you know, but it just bakes in the pan rather than in the oven or whatever. So so I'll just have a quick look. So I'll take them off the heat just now. So yeah, I use a palette knife, but you can use any type of fish slice or whatever, or even a knife, but you just don't want to scratch your pan. Excuse me. Okay, so you can see the bubbles and stuff. You can see it kind of grew a little bit, so I'll take that off the heat just now. And I've got a cooling rack, so I'll just put them straight onto that. so they don't keep on cooking. So my pan was probably a little bit too hot at the beginning there, so I'm just going to turn it down to sort of 4. Usually what I do is just keep turning it up and down between 4 and 5. So I'm just going to make sure that there's still you can't see that oil in the pan, but I know it's on the brush, so I'll maybe just do a tiny little extra spray just to make sure. But I don't want there to be like visible oil necessarily in the pan. Okay, so here we go. Do next 3. You can make them into shapes and stuff. I'm not very good at it, but sometimes you could get like, you know, try and make a letter shape, or I'm not really. I'd rather they just look like pancakes. Okay. So let's put that to the side. This is unusual for you to actually see the finished product for a change. So yep, that's them there. So I'll just leave them for a minute. Now when these are freshly made, they're really tasty on their own because they've got syrup in them, so they're quite sweet. Obviously what you can do is just put butter on them. My nephew puts syrup on them and I'm like, so much sugar. My niece just likes them with jam. We had some the other day with Harry had Nutella, Polly had jam, and then we put squishy cream on the top. So, and they're great because you can just stick them in a Tupperware and then carry them around with you, and then if they start going off, I noticed the swans quite like them as well, so you can always share them with your local wildlife. Okay, so you can see there, they don't all look the same. You know, my pan is slightly bigger than the hob, so like when I'm making crepes, I have to keep moving the pan around to make sure it gets an equal heat. So yeah, that's it. You can see the other side. Oops. The only thing, they're quite hot. So there you go, that's what they look like on that side. And then on, so with English pancakes, they get holes in them because they've got baking powder in them, whereas we use self-raising flour, and so we don't get the holes that you get in those pancakes or like in crumpets, but I don't think it really matters. These are a specific type of pancake, and you get all different types of pancakes, but as I said, these are just what I would call pancakes. I've got a friend called Adrian, who, if he watches this video, I'm sure he will make some comment underneath about them being dropped scones or scotch pancakes. But they're not, they're pancakes. Okay, so that's basically it. So the basic recipe, 225 grams of self-raising flour, 2 eggs, 100 grams of caster sugar or 4 tablespoons of syrup, approximately 120 mils of milk. Mix it all very vigorously, make sure it's really nice and smooth. Hot pan, put them onto the hot pan, wait till they start bubbling a little bit on the top, turn them over, and then you can look and check that they're the right colour underneath. Okay, very easy. Good luck.